薄いのアホ。プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shojo Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today is a special episode in that it's not an episode of Shojo Tell, it's an episode of the Manga Mavericks podcast that I, your Shojo Tell host, Ashley McDonald, was on. And on it, we discuss My Love Story by Kazune, Kawahara, and Aruko. It's a pretty big one. I've had it in the description of this podcast for the length of the podcast, which is over a year, and now it's finally a real episode, so yay, there we go. If you haven't already listened to this episode on the Manga Mavericks feed, please enjoy.
Valentine's Day may be over, but love is in the air all year round on Manga Mavericks, but most especially today, because today we're going to talk about a story. My love story. No, not my love story, as in me and my love story, but the series called My Love Story, or in Japanese, Ore Monogatari. Written by Kazune Kawahara, creator of High School Debut and Aoza Royale, with art by Aruko, artist of Akizakura and First Love, among other series. We are talking about My Love Story today, and finally, folks, we're talking about this series after 2 years since episode 17, aptly titled We Need to Read More Shoujo Manga, in which we promised we would read My Love Story. Finally, 60 episodes later, we are talking about My Love Story, the first shoujo manga we're talking about on Manga Mavericks. And who better to invite on for this auspicious occasion than the host of the shoujo manga podcast, Shojo Tell, Ashley McDonald!
Hello. I can't follow up that great intro.
It's okay. Most people can't.
I would say also on my podcast, I have in the description that we cover contemporary things like My Love Story, and I have also not done it, and it's been over a year, so we're kind of in the same boat here.
Finally, together we can cross it off both our podcast's bucket list.
I know, we're finally doing it. Yay.
I was gonna say good. I don't feel as bad now.
Right? Exactly.
But yes, My Love Story is a series that's been a long time coming for us to discuss on both of our shows, I think, because it's a series I think all three of us really adore.
I adore it now. I hadn't actually read it before. I'd only watched the anime.
Whoa, really?
Whoa, I know. Mind blown.
I think we'll go into our histories with My Love Story in a little bit, but first, a little more background on the series. As mentioned before, it is written by Kazune Kawahara and with art by Aruko. It was published in Basatsu Margaret from October 2011 to July 2016, though it debuted as a 100-page special in Basatsu Margaret's sister first before moving into regular Basatsu Margaret. The Viz release of the manga ran from about July 2014 to September 2017, and as mentioned before, the series did inspire a 24-episode anime that came out in April of 2015 and ended in September of 2015, which covered about the first 9.5 volumes of the series. There was also a live-action film that same year that came out on October 31st, 2015, which, from my understanding, it takes inspiration from the manga, but doesn't necessarily adapt any particular art, completely straight, and it comes up with its own original ending. I have not watched the live-action movie, but I've heard it's quite good.
I wouldn't mind watching it sometime.
And the premise of the series is about this student called Takeo Gouda, who is this big, tall, muscular guy who, because he is so big and tall and muscular, that, people mistake him for an adult always, but he's also not, because he's not conventionally a pretty boy, he's not particularly popular with the ladies. In fact, oftentimes, girls are bad-mouthing him behind his back. Girls that he's been in love with and interested in turn out to have very low opinion of him. But luckily, he has a great best friend who is the object of admiration and affection for many ladies, called Sunakawa, who sticks up for him and lets him know what people are really thinking about him, and is basically his best friend in the whole wide world who's looking out for him. And one day, Takeo notices a young girl being groped on a train, and he intercedes and stops him, and afterwards that girl falls in love with him. And at first, Takeo doesn't realize that she's fallen in love with him, and he thinks that she's in love with his best friend Sunakawa, like all the girls he's interested in have been. But over a series of misunderstandings, finally the truth comes out that Yamato, the girl, does love Takeo. Their feelings are mutual, and they begin dating, and the series from there is an exploration of their relationship through their high school years, as well as the relationship between Takeo and Sunakawa and their friendship. And that is basically the premise in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that short story, the first 2 chapters basically of the manga are pretty much perfect, so it's fine. No big deal.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing pilot chapter. I believe that those first 2 chapters were run together as a 100-page pilot when the series first debuted. And it is like a great self-contained story. It's very interesting because while the series does focus a lot on the relationship between Takeo and Rinko, the first chapter, the central relationship that's focused on, is truly between Takeo and Sunakawa. And it's really how about these characters are looking out for each other and how they care about the happiness of their friend. And that's really the emotional climax of that first chapter, is Takeo is relating their friendship to the story of the blue ogre and red ogre, and how the blue ogre sacrifices his own personal happiness for his friend the red ogre's happiness. And Takeo's like, oh, the blue ogre is just too kind. And it's such a sad story, but Sunakawa sees it differently. Sunakawa is like, well, of course you would do that. Who wouldn't want to see their best friend happy? And that is ultimately that climax of the chapter, is reflecting on why are we friends when we're so, from outwardly we seem so totally different. Well, it's more than just the fact that we're childhood friends and neighbors. There's definitely a deeper connection between us. We are truly close in a special way. And I think the friendship between Takeo and Sunakawa is just as important as the relationship between him and Rinko throughout the series.
Oh, yeah, the true love story is between Sunakawa and Takeo. Let's be real here.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. Let's be very clear. That's the real my love story.
I think we see them kiss just as many times as Takeo
right?
and Rinko.
That's true. Oh my goodness. Jesus.
So let's dive in now to how we first discovered the series or heard about the series. Would you like to go first, Ashley?
Sure. Again, as I mentioned, I actually watched the anime first. I guess it actually only came on my radar when the anime came out, and people were like, it's subversive of shoujo. And I watched the anime, and I was like, yeah, I get it. It is subversive of shoujo, but I didn't feel that much watching the anime. I was kind of like, whatever. And then I actually went and read High School Debut, Kawahara's other series, and based on just the anime of my love story versus that, I actually liked High School Debut better. There were things between that friendship that remind me a lot of my high school years that I was like, oh, I think this is really dope. And I think that series is much more of a stereotypical shoujo, but lightly subverts some things that I was like, oh, I dig this. This is fine. And then I was like, no, but I should read the manga of my love story, obviously. I have a shoujo manga podcast. It's a thing I should do. So you all finally made me read it, and I was like, oh no, this is much better as a manga. The pacing that you can do as a reader is much better. Also, the anime only gets through the first 9 volumes. I guess it's nice to be like, oh, it's a completed story here. You only had 3.5 more volumes to go, anime. What's up? Why didn't you just do it? What's up? I don't understand anime sometimes. That's fine.
Yeah, it's truly a shame they did not make another season to adapt the rest of the story.
I know. It's so close. I just don't understand. Whatever.
Granted, I think, I don't think the manga had ended at the time, but
it didn't.
But now that it's over,
been for another year, but yeah.
Now that
you'd think that afterwards that they would put another season.
I was gonna say, yeah, now that it's over, I don't know if the anime just didn't do very well, or if it didn't do well enough to warrant another season, but I mean, I don't know. I would at least like another like 12 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, like I think it just needs another core, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. That would have been enough, but for whatever reason, Madhouse did not decide to pursue another season. But, I mean, that's what we have the manga for. With the manga, we can read through to the complete ending, and, like Ashley said, in many ways, the manga is a better experience.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a better experience. I mean, it's like nothing about that animation or like, I don't remember any of the music. Like, don't come at me, people, if you really love the anime. Like, that's fine. But it's just like, I was like, nothing was added by the anime to me. Things were only added by the manga.
I will say, things that I really like about the anime is I like the color palette, and also I will disagree on the OST because I do think there are quite a few memorable tracks. Particularly the opening and ending themes are still ingrained in my mind, even though it's been 4 years since I've seen the anime. So yeah, I feel there's some memorable tracks in there.
Maybe my brain is just bad. I don't know. I don't remember anything.
Fun fact, I listened to the ending theme of like on loop a lot while reading the manga, so because I really like that
Set the mood.
song. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, there are good songs in there, I think.
Okay, I should have augmented my manga reading experience with the OST. I see. That could be a strategy.
I mean, if it helps, like, I hate to say it, I actually don't really remember a lot of the actual, like, background music from the show at all, honestly. I'd have to watch the show again, but I don't know. I like the anime myself, but again, it's still that thing where it's like, oh, I really wish it would complete the story.
Yeah, I know,
Shoujo
right?
anime in particular is like, they never complete the story. They're like, I don't know, we did like a third. This one's good. It got through most of it, I guess.
You got an anime. How much more do you want?
Yeah, how much more do you want? Getting the anime is really the key here. Like, that's as far as we're going. I'm like, all right.
Maybe people will remember the series fondly enough that 10 years down the line, they'll make a new My Love Story anime that does cover the whole story, like with Fruits Basket.
Yeah, they're gonna Fruits Basket this? Maybe.
But Colton, how did you get into the series?
Yeah, my story is not that special. I don't. My love story was just one of those things that, like, I had seen people talk about before it got licensed, before it ever got an anime. And I remember people going on about how subversive it is, and you know, just from like I guess the volume covers alone had me really interested.
They are good.
Cause I think I was talking a little bit about this on Twitter, where I don't agree with the way Viz, I guess, re-edited the covers for volumes 1 and 2 in particular, because the original Japanese covers have Takeo pretty prominently, or at the very least, like, you know, they have him placed in a way where it's like you could tell like he's the main character, whereas the Viz volumes kind of put, at least for volumes 1 and 2, they do place both Sunakawa and Yamato both pretty prominently, and you just kind of have Takeo in the background, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but that's just me in particular. But no, yeah, it's just one of those things I kind of saw around, and I think, because I remember Viz, actually, when they still ran their weekly Shonen Jump, I think they ran a preview of My Love Story in the Viz Shonen Jump, and I remember reading that.
That indeed they did.
And I also read because I know My Love Story did crossovers with Nisekoi at the time, too. So I remember reading those and thought those were kind of cute. And I was like, okay, I gotta read this sometime. But then I think like a year later or something, the anime got announced. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll watch this. And I tried watching it week to week. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I forget to watch one week and I just never watch it again. But I did eventually get around to watching all of it. I basically marathoned like the rest of the second half of the anime. And from there, I was like, man, I really love this series. I need to get to reading it sometime. And then I guess like 2 years later, I finally read the manga for this podcast. And, you know, like Lum mentioned earlier, yeah, I love this manga. Like, it's really good.
It is. It's really good.
Excellent. And so to go over my history, I also started with the manga shortly after Viz had licensed the series, and I heard a lot of buzz about it. I think the idea that it is a subversive shoujo story is interesting to kind of dissect, and so I think we should discuss that a little bit later. But that was also one of the selling points when I first heard about it and heard it being discussed that made me curious to check it out. And I was instantly smitten with just the characterization of Takeo and the friendship between him and Sunakawa, and just how charmingly sweet the love story between Takeo and Rinko was. And so after I caught up on the Viz release of what they had out at that time, which in the fall of 2014 probably was only about the first volume, maybe the first 2 volumes, I definitely did, because I still did this at the time, seek out the unofficial translations and read through whatever was available of those. Which, when I was rereading the series, I definitely think it was actually quite a ways in, and must have been, because I also remember this from watching the anime, that because I knew the story for what was covered in a long portion of the anime until the very end. Definitely before the Ichinose stuff at the very end of the anime. So I must have read like the first what was equivalent to the first 7 or 8 volumes worth of the manga before the anime came out. And then afterwards, after the anime came out, I didn't revisit the manga, though I had kept up with purchases of the Viz release until it ended. But yeah, so this is my first time since 2015, I guess, that I revisited the manga of My Love Story and read it through to the conclusion. Even though I've had like the last couple volumes sitting on my shelf for like 2 years at this point, since Viz finished it. But yeah, I mean, that's the story with a lot of the manga I got by them and they sit on my shelf for a while. But yeah.
I know that feeling.
But yeah, like, I do really love the series, and I think watching the anime, for me, was a great experience, because I watched it with V-Lord, pretty much beginning to end, and we both had a lot of fun with it, and it was fun watching with him, because I knew the story, but he didn't, so I like seeing his reaction to things. And we even turned a lot of friends onto the series, a lot of male friends, even. We had a Wii party, one of our infamous Wii parties, where a group of us just got together and we binged through a bunch of My Love Story. It was a great time.
Yeah, I think I sort of had the same experience too, where it's like, you know, a lot of my friends, a lot of my like real close friends don't watch a lot of the same stuff I do. So My Love Story at the time was kind of one of the few new things that, like, when it came out, that like a lot of my friends really got into and loved just as much as I did. So we kind of got to, you know, watch a bit of it together, you know, until, again, we all just kind of stopped following it weekly for whatever reason. I also forgot to mention, and I feel remiss if I didn't, that I think, I mean, as ashamed as I am to kind of admit it, I think this is the first full shoujo manga I've read in its entirety.
Now that is
This
quite
is
a shame,
sad.
Colton. I am very
That's just
disappointed in
sad.
you. Oh my gosh.
Because
But see, that's interesting to me because it's subversive of shoujo, like, but you don't have the basis in what it's subverting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Come on.
I knew you didn't read much shoujo, Colton, but come on.
I think the only other shoujo manga I've read most of Fushigi Yugi, but I never got to finish it.
Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. Well, that sure is a shoujo. Yeah.
I'm trying, guys. 2019 is going to be the year I fix that. So.
And that was the point of the poll. So you need to read Banana Fish and Shiafaru and Yona of the Dawn this year.
I'll read all 3.
That you better do.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm at the principal's office right now. Like, I'm sorry, I'll do better.
Yeah. Come
You
on.
got an F in your shoujo manga knowledge. You need to raise those grades before you can graduate to manga expert.
I feel like I should be wearing a dunce cap right now. Like, that's how I feel right now.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember the exact timeline, but My Love Story anime definitely came out like a year or 2 before I started my podcast. And I think I had a moment where I like watched a bunch of shoujo anime years and years ago. And then like I was falling behind. I like wasn't reading that much shoujo manga. And every day, like my partner at the time, listened to a lot of podcasts and manga podcasts. And he'd be like, there's a Gintama podcast and like all these general podcasts. And there's the Shonen Jump podcast. And I was like, do none of these podcasts cover shoujo? Like, I am baffled right now. It's just like, fine, I'll just make a shoujo manga podcast because apparently that's a real low bar to cover. And like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. So I think my love story came at a time where I was like, God, why are there nobody talks about the shoujo, even though like it's great. I don't understand.
I'm sorry. I should have done a shoujo podcast instead.
I know. Everybody should shoot
Expand your shoujo manga knowledge.
I know.
I guarantee you one of those Gintama podcasts for mine.
Oh, I guess the One Piece podcast. Yeah, it's just like every individual Shonen Jump series gets its own podcast, and I was like, all right, slow your roll, everybody, slow down.
There needs to be more shoujo manga podcasts for sure. But I'm really glad that you started Shojo Tell to fill that niche, and I've been enjoying like every episode that I listen to. Though there are some episodes I don't listen to because I haven't read the series.
That's fine. That's how I want to do it. Because, like, honestly, I don't want to contribute to everybody feeling like they have to read everything. I'm like, no. Just read the thing. Like, listen to the episodes for things you've already read. Or what if you listen to the beginning and you're like, that sounds cool. Like, stop listening. Go read it. I don't know.
Yeah, usually sometimes I'll listen to the first part of your discussions so I can learn, like, the beginning of the series. But I will avoid the second part until I finish reading the series so I don't get spoiled on how it ends.
Yeah. Because we will spoil everything. Like we're going to do here too, right? We're going to spoil all the things.
I was going to say, we kind of do the same thing, so,
Awesome.
Yeah, this is not a spoiler-anxious podcast. There are spoilers abound.
Good. Because I need to talk about the ending. Because honestly, I think what turned me off initially from my love story was that I really didn't connect with Yamato. But then the ending of the manga, I was like, actually, I really feel those feelings. I understand you, girl. Like, I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, the series is from Takeo's perspective most of the time. So a lot of the time I feel like we only understand Yamato's feelings from his perspective and from like kind of that distance. Because Takeo is the only character that we can get into his head and see what he's really thinking. And then with other characters, we only know how they're feeling through like what they say. And even in scenes where Takeo isn't present, we will only learn what they think and what they are feeling through their conversations with other characters. So Yamato is also a character who puts up oftentimes the front of being cheerful and optimistic and hides like how she might really feel from Takeo. This is like a conflict that happens like very early in the manga where Takeo tells her that, don't worry, I won't do anything to you until we're much older. And she's like, oh, okay. And she has a hard time like getting courage to tell him that, no, actually I do want to be intimate with you. I do want to like hold hands with you. And that's like a big challenge for her. Like she does suppress her feelings all the time. And then throughout the series, though, we do see like hints that she has a lot of self-doubts in her own right. Much like Takeo, she was someone who thought that there wouldn't be anyone who she thought that she wasn't very attractive. She didn't think that anyone would really fall in love with her. So they're not too dissimilar in their mindset. And that's really interesting to see kind of those parallels and think about them as the series progresses.
Yeah, to me it was just like, I don't know, I guess because we see it from Takeo's perspective, I was like, Yamato doesn't have much of a personality to me. Yeah, like she just is like, I bake things and I'm happy all the time. I'm like, that's weird. So then when we get to see her be depressed at the end, I was like, yes, this is the darkness I needed for you to have right now. Like, but like I went through a similar thing with my partner. We had been going out since high school and then we were going to go to separate colleges. So we were sad. And I was like, thank you. You do have feelings, and like she just becomes a mess. And I was like, yes, that's what I needed. That's what I needed. You're a real person to me now.
And it really is interesting that once she's separated from Takeo, she loses so much of that confidence when she's in Spain. And that really is throwing like a curveball in like her life because her grades are slipping and she feels alienated because she can't speak Spanish very well and communicate with other people. And so she really feels isolated and alone. And it is like a really relatable kind of feeling and like a low point for her that you can empathize with, because that idea of like alienation from other people, like she doesn't even have like a Sunakawa in her life that, you know, she can rely on just to confide feelings in.
Yeah, that Takeo realizing that, well, I was like, thank you, Takeo. You do understand. You're getting more perceptive here, Takeo. What's up? But I guess we should go back to talking about Takeo, the actual main boy of the story.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the elements that people considered subversive about My Love Story was that the protagonist was someone like Takeo. I feel like that people look at the cover or look at character design at first glance and go like, oh, it's about a unattractive protagonist who finds love. But I don't... That for one thing, that is definitely not the intent of Kawahara and Aruko themselves. Like, they designed Takeo as kind of like a handsome and cool guy that they found attractive. Like, the series was apparently it debuted in Bisatsu Margaret with the tagline, "Ugly guys are in," which Kawahara herself found very rude because that's definitely not the point of the story. The point of the story is that a lot of people are attracted to Takeo and see admirable qualities in him and love him a lot. And it's Takeo himself who thinks that he's not worthy of love, who thinks that, you know, he is just someone who is never going to find love because of the way he looks and because he's comparing himself to Sunakawa all the time and seeing, like, Sunakawa as a better person than him and more deserving of it. But then, like, by the end of the first chapter, he realizes, no, there is someone who loves him. And then, throughout the series, he realizes it's not just Yamato. Like, he insists to Yamato during the Maria arc that, oh, don't worry. You don't have to worry about anyone else falling in love with me. I'm not popular. But then, like, when Maria confesses to him, that, like, opens his mind. That's, oh, no, that's not true. There are a lot of people who love me and, like, look out for me. And it's also a great moment because that also makes him realize that he doesn't just love Yamato because she's the only one who loves him. He loves Yamato because she's the only one that he really thinks about in that way, like, that he truly loves. So it's not that she's the only girl who loves him is what attracts him to her. It's that she is the only girl for him in, like, his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a really profound moment too, just on that aspect. But yeah, so I think that element of it, that Takeo is this unattractive protagonist, and that is the subversive element, is, like, missing the point of My Love Story. And I'm not sure if the series is necessarily subversive. When people describe the series as subversive, like, do you guys feel like there is an element to that it is twisting on shoujo tropes in, like, a way that is meant to critique or go against them in like a necessarily intentional way?
I mean, as we have discussed earlier, I've only read one shoujo manga, so I can't really speak to that. But and just as someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in shoujo manga, I guess what I found kind of surprising was, you know, like, in the very beginning, I totally just kind of, you know, because obviously we don't know Sunakawa very well in the very beginning of the manga, so, you know, I think it's easy for people who are just starting the series to assume, like, you know, he's totally stealing all these girls from Takeo, whether it be intentional or not. I'm sure some people might have just assumed it was intentional, but kind of having that reveal that, like, oh, Sunakawa is actually, like, the best bro anyone could ever have, and actually, you know, loves his friend and cares about, you know, all these girls who are bad-mouthing him. Like, I personally found that somewhat surprising, because I think it would have been easy to have Sunakawa kind of secretly be the asshole who, like, you know, steals all these girls from his friend. But no, he just genuinely cares about his friend. And again, whether that's like a shoujo thing or not, I can't speak to. But personally, I thought it was pretty refreshing that he's just a good friend. So
yeah, I think what is subversive about this manga, there are things that I think are subversive, and there are other things that I think tried to be maybe subversive and failed at being, or maybe they were trying to play it straight, and because we have all this talk about it being subversive, you, like, read it wrong in the beginning, and then you're like, oh wait, it didn't go that way that I thought it would. But I think, like, male friendship is not a thing that I can think throughout many shoujo series happens. Like, the portrayal of a healthy male friendship, it's always like, oh, they're love rivals and then they become friends, or like they are only friends via, you know, the girls that they are dating, their friends, so they all become friends, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's the thing too, is like, you know, personally, I can't, romance isn't really my preferred genre as far as like just stories go, because like a lot of the romance stories I have read personally always include like these situations where it's like, why don't you just talk to them? You know,
right.
like there are so many situations where it's like that where characters can end up in where it's like, you know, if you just talk these things out, like we wouldn't have to go through all this extra stuff. And I think that's kind of I think that's the thing I kind of like about my love story, is that it doesn't hinge on these wild misunderstandings for drama or whatever. Like, it's a very personal story about people who actually, like, you know, if they can't talk out their feelings, they learn to. And I think that's the thing that makes this series so relatable to me in particular. And I'm sure for a lot of people.
Right. This is a very affirming manga. Like, they are actually constantly telling each other, I do love you. It's not like random situations where they're like, oh no, now I don't know how this person feels about me. And like, what could possibly, and like, I mean, there are situations like that where it's like, okay, a love rival has appeared, but it happens for like maybe like a volume max. They're a little bit confused about how they actually feel. Yeah, it's not a prolonged like multi-arc. Like, there are things in this. I've just read Kimi ni Todoke. That's a 30 volume series. It's much more of a stereotypical shoujo series. It's very, it, you know, lingers upon like very basic things. And there's just an arc in there where it's like 8 volumes of a really dumb misunderstanding that in my love story is just like a chapter.
Oh, see,
like, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds like my personal hell. I don't know if I could go through that.
Yeah, it's admittedly the worst arc of that, but like, you know. So there's a lot of like looking at those two series. They're also basically contemporaries. Obviously, Kimi ni Todoke has gone on longer, so it was prolonged more. But like, it only just ended, so they were running at the same time, basically. So I think that the male friendship is the most subversive thing. The thing that annoys me that I thought was going to be more subversive was like the purity politics of Yamato, because I thought it was really cool that she is like, Takeo is the one who is all virginal and upstanding and like that exploration of masculinity and like good masculinity and stuff was great. And then I thought it was great that Yamato was like, no, I'm the one who's like, you think I'm super innocent, but I'm super, super like into you and thirsty for you and all these things. And I was like, that's awesome. But then like anytime that comes up, because it happens at least 2 or 3 times, it's like one kiss is enough to like satisfy all of that sexual tension. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. And I don't appreciate this like still really virginal aspect of this shoujo manga, where I really wanted it to go harder into that aspect, because I feel like it was set up like really early on that was a plot point for her, and I was just like, come on. Come on.
It's definitely very PG depiction of sexuality
right?
between Takeo and Yamato.
And I was like really excited for it not to be, but it totally was. And I was like, no, I'm so disappointed.
I feel like it would have been kind of jarring to go, because I don't know, like, I see where you're coming from, but I feel like it would have been really jarring to go from this, like, really PG, sweet, charming love story to just hardcore, I mean, I'm sure it probably would have happened off screen, but I don't know, I'm not sure if there's, like, an easy, I don't know, I'm sitting here kind of thinking, well, how else could this have been handled, and I'm just having a hard time coming up with a solution.
Well, I think how it could have been handled is that they decide, okay, we want to be physically intimate, we want to have sex, like, are we ready to have this, like, have conversations about that, you know, like they have been about their feelings throughout the entire series.
Yeah, like, they just don't have open conversations about it, and anytime they do, then it just kind of, like, resets. Like, they don't hold hands properly ever, apparently.
Well, that's adorable, that they mess up holding hands just because they're so awkward and like, nervous being around each other because they love each other so much.
I don't know. I was like, get it together, y'all. Or like, they never kiss consistently. Takeo has the thing where he's like, I'm gonna call her Rinko, and he like never does. That never happens. He does it like once. And I was just like, come on. Just keep one of them consistent at least. It was basically my takeaway.
I don't know. I mostly saw it as like baby steps. Like, I feel like I kind of understand that thing where it's like, you know, I really want to do this, but I don't know. I guess I kind of disagree in that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't know.
I do think it's weird that after the entire arc towards the end, where Takeo is abstaining from touching Yamato because he's getting so worked up around her, and then Yamato is like intentionally engineering situations that would get her close to Takeo so that he would like touch her and notice her and stuff and get excited because she is very happy that he's doing it like that. And then eventually they have a conversation that, you know, it's okay for you to have these feelings around me. I have the same feelings for you. I do think it is weird that at the conclusion of that arc, like, they share a big sloppy kiss, but that's as far as it goes.
Right.
Because they already had done that before.
They need to make out. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They need to kiss at least more consistent. They need to kiss each other goodbye, like something. Give me anything, really, here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's actually the parallel arc that's crap in Kimi Todake too, is that it's like, the dude is like, oh my god, I can't control myself around her, so I'm not gonna touch her, and that gives her like super anxiety for, again, like 6 to 8 volumes, some ridiculous amount of volumes, like seriously. And then finally it's actually their teacher who's like, oh wow, you haven't touched her for like 6 months, what a cool dude you are, JK, that like that's super uncool. And it's just like, yes, the shoujo mangas get it. They're just really bad at like releasing that tension, getting over it, and talking about it, and then just being like, "Here's how we're gonna remedy it in a, you know, actionable way." God.
But at the same time, I don't think it is necessarily wrong that they wouldn't want to progress their relationship much further than kissing, necessarily.
No,
like,
that could be
if they want to
fine.
wait to do it, that's fine. But I think that they should have had more of a conversation about it. Like, the series does tiptoe its way around even mentioning sex by name. I don't think they explicitly mention sex by name at any point during the manga.
Oh yeah, no. The one time Takeo was like, Yamato is being such a tease, and I was like, whoa, we used the word tease, what's up? Like,
Whoa.
That's
scandalous. As raunchy as it gets.
I know,
I was like, oh.
Other times the series will just use euphemisms for any feelings of sexual desire, like saying Takeo is getting excited, and not saying like he's getting turned on.
Sunakawa was like, I can't say desires, that's wrong, stop making me talk about this, stop it. Poor Sunakawa. Poor boy.
But I guess to turn a light on Takeo, how Takeo expresses like how he's feeling to Sunakawa, and like trying to share like how he's feeling towards Sunakawa, like it is kind of admirable. And going back to the male friendship idea, to see such a close friendship where these two characters can be open about their feelings with one another and can talk about like these kind of subjects to each other, at least without embarrassment on Takeo's part.
Well, because Takeo's always like, Suna, what if I practice kissing on you? And Suna's like, please don't. Please, that's a step too far. We've gone
Wraps
way
the
too far.
plastic wrap around his head.
Yeah, some pushing daisies nonsense is happening here. Yeah.
But it's so rare to like have a friendship like that be portrayed between two male characters, just in any manga, I feel. That like they would be so open and frank emotionally, and it doesn't like take a lot of build up to even get to that point. They're like that way from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's still a little too like baity on them being possibly lovers, like instead of it just being a bromance, like them being great friends. It's like they do seed the sexual tension between them a little too much, maybe. I'm like, all right, but that's fine. But no, Sunakawa is the best character. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I think that he in particular is the best character. This also is maybe, I don't know that I would call it subversive, but I think that he's a great portrayal of what introverts are actually like, and a thing that you don't see a lot in manga. Because I feel like when manga normally tries to portray somebody who's like shy or introverted, those are two different things, but like they'll be like, oh, it's because they're an otaku who's like kind of eccentric in their personal life, and they just like haven't found their little niche yet, and then they discover, I don't know, like Princess Jellyfish or whatever, that sort of deal. But Sunakawa is like, no, I just like to read books. And like, he's not eccentric about reading books. The one bonus chapter where we get to see him be excited about a book, I was like, that feels so real right now. Like, his hype level is actually pretty minimal. And then he's just like passive aggressively mad that Takeo has ruined his book. And I was like, that's so real. And Sunakawa is like drained when Tanaka's the transfer student or whatever. Yeah, when Tanaka comes and tries to be his friend because he's like, Sunakawa's the hot one or whatever, I want to look cool with Sunakawa. Sunakawa like lays down in Takeo's room and then is just like, I just need to go to bed because he's like so drained by having to hang out with somebody new and stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. And then the other bonus chapter where they're talking about like embarrassing things where they tried to imitate somebody else or whatever. And Sunakawa like went to get a hand grip to try to be manly like Takeo and build muscles and all these things, and he was like, what am I doing? This is weird and embarrassing. I can't be like Takeo. And he just like immediately discards it. I'm like, yes, that is definitely it's like he thinks that's super embarrassing because as an introvert you think every little dumb thing is so like scary even when people don't know about it. And then you're just like, no, Sunakawa, that's like adorable and nobody cares. Like,
he just wants to be like his friend.
He does.
Yeah. I really appreciate Sunakawa's characterization because like you mentioned, like unlike other introverts, it's not that it's not like he can't function in society. It's not like he feels alienated from society and like out of place in it. It's just that he is a quiet person. He just likes keeping to himself. He just isn't sociable, and he's just not inclined to be that way, and that's okay, because he only really needs his friendship with Takeo. Like, that's as much social interaction he really wants, and that's good enough for him.
Yeah, like, he has his sister, he has Takeo, and then through Takeo, they hang out with other people sometimes, and he seems totally fine with that, and he's like, this is great, like, this is all I need, and I want to read books, and like, actually, the most adorable scene with him was when he decides to watch Takeo's little sister while the mom goes to the grocery store. And he's, like, talking to Maki. Like, this is such a thing. It's like, I'm talking to another human, but, like, they don't understand me, and that's fine. So he's, like, talking. He's like, I feel a little lonely because, Takeo's hanging out with Yamato more. And, like, I don't know, I need some social interaction, I guess, or whatever. And Takeo overhears that and is like, Suna, why don't you tell me more things? And Suna's like, oh my god, I am so embarrassed. Please, no, this is terrible. I need to run away now. Like, the most terrified introvert. He's like, I've done a bad. It's too much for me. Talking about feelings. It was great. I love Suna. He's the best.
Yeah, it's really adorable.
I know. So, like, I was like, thank you, manga, for not making him eccentric or, like, shy. So the difference between introvert and shy is, like, shy, you actually get social anxiety, like, talking to people. Introvert is just, it's kind of exhausting, but you can do it. And he's just, like, a perfect introvert.
Yeah, it's basically the contrast between him and Amami. Amami is someone who's definitely shy and has trouble, like, talking to people. Like, finding even the words to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is like how she has a hard time like communicating with Sunakawa for a long time and just watched him from afar for like 10 years.
Right, yeah, totally. Oh boy. Not creepy at all, no.
No. Well, I mean,
definitely, yes.
She grows from that. Like when we see her later on, she seems to have made friends with Takeo and Yamato and seems to have become like more socially able.
Yes, I'm proud of her. Good job, Amami.
I personally want to give a shout out to Takeo's mom because she's probably one of the best moms in manga, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love how like I love how like even when she was pregnant, Takeo and his dad, which by the way, his dad is handsome as fuck. I love it how like they constantly worry about her, but she like it's like she's not even pregnant. like she might as well just not be carrying a baby, because she could still do pretty much everything like a mom and a housewife can. She still like cleans the house, you know, goes out to buy groceries and whatnot. She's even helping other pregnant women. She's pretty much a superhero in my eyes. Like she's great. I love her.
Basically.
Yeah, it's great to see her do it, but also, like, you understand that she is taking steps to, like, protect her baby. Like, when she's cleaning, you see her, like, being in the weird positions, like, oh, this is the way that it won't hurt my baby. This is the way to clean now, like, you know, sort of deal. I'm like, yes.
And she is worried after she saves the other pregnant woman from falling down the stairs that, you know, that might have had an adverse effect on her baby, and that causes her some anxiety that's very noticeable. For the rest of, like, that story arc.
Yeah, she's also just so real when she was like, this is a manga inherently about not taking things for granted. And Takeo is very touched when his mom is like, you know, some children don't get to grow up and, like, live full lives, so, like, don't take life for granted, basically. Like, she has this no-nonsense but still very cheerful attitude that really clearly affects him and he tries to live with. And I was like, yes, that's nice. And that's why it's so nice to see the protagonists always be so affirming of their love for each other. Like, he's always like, I love you, Yamato. And she's like, I love you too. And then he's like, Suna, like, we're bros. And Suna's like, what's up? Yeah. Takeo's the best and all these things. And I'm like, thank you. It's so nice that you just say those things out loud instead of wondering about it forever.
It's interesting because, like, for a while I was reading, like, it sort of felt like, as far as, like, the story goes, like, at first I felt it was, like, very light, and I kind of thought about the possibility of people getting into this and maybe not feeling like there's a lot going on, like, it's just cute for the sake of being cute, but then, obviously, later on, you kind of realize, you know, sort of the point of my love story is that, you know, it's basically just Takeo just learning to be able to express his feelings and, you know, learning along the way that he does deserve to find love and whatnot. But, I mean, with that being said, like, honestly, like, Takeo is such a great character that I could just read about him forever.
Yeah.
Sequel manga of him being an adult. What his adventures are. I
mean, honestly, I would read that day one. Like,
same.
Yeah, I would love that.
I mean, Kawahara and Aruko wrote and drew him to be their idea of what a cool guy is. And, I mean, he does consistently amazing and awesome things. I mean, like, from very early on, when he rescues two people from a burning building and he jumps out of the burning building. I mean, that is pretty badass. I remember me and Velor joking that, oh my gosh, they should air this on Toonami and in the trailer, just use that scene to sell it as an action show.
Oh, I don't want to admit, I said this on Twitter, but I really don't want to admit, like, how loudly I sobbed when I first watched that episode. It's pretty embarrassing, actually.
Yeah. Well, see, that's another scene, I think, where it's like, it's lightly poking fun at more stereotypical romance tropes, because he's like, I could die here and that would be great to, like, sacrifice my life. But then he realizes, you know, it's better to live your life entirely with the person you love. That's more of a cool thing to do, probably. Show how much you love them and everything. And, yeah, I don't know. So, like, there's lots of ways in which I think this manga gently pokes fun at other shoujo tropes with, like, those action scenes and everything. And Takeo's masculinity in particular. Like, I love the scene where Oda is basically forcing himself on Ai, Sunakawa's sister. They're doing the Kabedon thing. So he, like, pushes her up against the wall and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I pushed you up against the wall. Did you fall for me? And she's like, no. And then, like, Oda kisses her and Takeo sees that upsets Ai and is like, you should not have done that. And they're all immediately like, yeah, that was a bad thing. And I'm like, yes, those are the things that are, like, refreshing about this manga. But I still hesitate to call them subversive so much as, like, isn't that how everything should go? Like, isn't that just how the masculinity should be?
Yeah, this is like a healthy a portrayal of what masculinity should be, and then like also how you should treat other people.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's the one trope I'm very familiar with. So when I got to that point,
there you go, you appreciated it.
when I got to that point, I was like, there it is. Took him long enough.
That moment's definitely a surprising moment for Takeo, because Takeo always wields his strength responsibly and uses it to protect other people, help other people. Rarely do we see him fight people and, like, punch or hurt people, but in that moment you could definitely tell that he was so truly angered by what Oda has done, because that is, I think, the only time he throws a punch at someone to, like, hurt them and stop them. Like, outside of participating in, like, the judo competition or whatever.
Well, I guess it's seeded from he gets suspended for punching the groper that was harassing Yamato
that
in the meeting.
also happened, but that was also a moment where he got very mad because of how that person was mistreating someone else.
No, totally. And that's great. Yeah, I feel like starting with a groper is also like kind of a typical shoujo manga thing. Like, groper on a train is here. So it's like, in the same way, I think Kawahara just knows. She's like, I've read the shoujos. Like, I know throughout all her series, she has these light, gentle breaking of the stereotypical tropes that you've seen. Yeah, I still just don't know if it's enough to be like, it's the most subversive thing ever. Like,
I definitely don't think that should be the selling point of My Life Story, that it is good because it is subversive. I think that what readers should be attracted to My Life Story is because the central issues are so compelling, and also because the series explores the emotions and feelings of its characters and depicts communication between the characters and how they're feeling in a very healthy and responsible way. In a way that other romance series often don't do. And especially its depiction of masculinity and positive masculinity is something to be noted as very rare among other titles, shoujo or shonen, where oftentimes there is going to be like a domineering aspect in the male characters when they try to, they often might try to coerce or force female characters or other characters into acquiescing to what they want. But in My Love Story, Takeo is always is a supportive person, and he never like forces Yamato to do anything she doesn't want to do, and the relationship is mutually amiable.
I mean, yeah, like, I think that's just the problem with going back to the whole subversive thing. Like, I feel like that's kind of a problem with, like, just people who are into media in general. Like, people are so obsessed with like subversions and how does this deconstruct this trope or this genre or whatever. Like, that's, I don't know. I see a lot of people put a lot of stock in that kind of thing. And while I think like those kinds of conversations are interesting, you know, like, again, as someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in shoujo manga, like, I feel like I got a lot out of this series, even though I'm not familiar with shoujo tropes. Like, I feel like I got a lot out of the characters. It took me a while to kind of realize what Takeo's sort of character arc is, but once I was kind of clued in, like, I was kind of all there. Like, I really like seeing Takeo just kind of, you know, learn to express his feelings and learn that, like, basically that he has worth. I thought that was a very compelling arc that I thought really wrapped up nicely with his sort of monologue at the very end of the series. That you know, that his love story is basically the same as anyone else's love story, which I thought was very beautiful.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I just love that it still does the shoujo thing of, like, you know, you're sold on this, like, the back cover is like, Takeo is a giant person with a giant heart, but nobody loves him, and it's like, oh, everybody falls for his best friend all the time. And it's like, yeah, that's the one shot. And then, like, the rest of the series is not at all, like, about that at all. It's kind of just like, oh, now we don't care about anybody being in love with Sunakawa. It doesn't matter. Like, nobody even is in love with Sunakawa aside from Amami. And that's, like, addressed in a volume. So, like, who cares anymore? And it just goes off to be something else.
We see girls swoon over Sunakawa, but it's never the focus of the series. The focus is always on Takeo and Rinko's relationship. And Takeo and Sunakawa's relationship.
I was kind of almost waiting for an arc where it's like, oh, is Sunakawa finally gonna fall for a girl? But I'm also okay with him just, like we said earlier, like I'm okay with just him, doing as much socializing as he wants to, and not much else outside of that. Like, that's just him.
Yeah, not everyone needs to couple up and get into like a romantic relationship. For Sunakawa, his friendship with Takeo is enough for him. And I think that is perfectly fine.
He's so good. I love when he hits snapping points too. Like when he just tells Tanaka, I don't like you, and walks away. I'm like, yes, perfect.
That is such an important character moment, because that's like the first time he like vocally expresses his dislike for someone. Like all that time he was like passively just hanging around Tanaka because he isn't just blunt enough to say, no, I don't want to be around you. And even though he's visibly annoyed because Tanaka is bad-mouthing his best friend and stuff, he just doesn't take the initiative to just not hang around him because he views it as like more of an effort to ignore him. But then ultimately just gets to that point where he's like, no, you know what? I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. I'm not going to be your friend. And yeah, it's just a great character moment for Sunakawa.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, anytime Sunakawa got, like, visibly upset, it honestly kind of scared me a little bit, like...
Because it is so rare for him, because he's such a mellow person who keeps to himself, which, again, makes the moment where he slaps Takeo before, like, having self-doubts about his relationship with Yamato and breaking up with her, and fulfilling, like, the promise he had to Takeo that if, like, he ever veered off the wrong path, like, slap him to his senses. But, like, yeah, I mean, just, like, him actually being upset with Takeo, like, in a serious way like that is just so rare and astounding that it leaves a huge impact in that moment.
Suna!
And I definitely, for Takeo, that moment is definitely the big wake-up call he has to realize, yeah, I messed up and I need to make this right.
Yeah, you did, Takeo. What are you doing? What are you doing, bro? Come on.
I also want to just kind of give a shout out to the little arc with Kurihara and Nanako. I thought that was a really sweet little arc where the moment that really stuck out to me from that was where, because obviously, Yamato and Takeo really want to be supportive of their friends and try to get them together, but then they're kind of faced with the reality that at the end of the day that not every relationship can work out as well as theirs. And you can't force that kind of thing on people. Like, you kind of have to let that thing sort of build naturally, which I thought was interesting for me, because it's like, my love story is really cool because, like, obviously Yamato and Takeo, like, they have their issues and their foibles that they kind of have to get over, but, like, it's this weird mix of, like, yeah, it's an idealized relationship that not everyone has, but it's also still very grounded at the same time, which I don't know how it achieves this mix, but I think it achieves it very well.
Mm-hmm.
No, it totally does. Yeah. I know that you wanted to talk about how this is actually a manga that's... One of the other big differences between this and other shoujo manga is that this manga is not about the chase of the girl or, like, getting in the relationship.
Oh yeah, thank you. It is about
being in the relationship, right? Like,
yeah, I was gonna say that earlier, like, but I wasn't sure if this was a thing in shoujo manga, but I know it's a thing, like, just in anime and manga in general, like, the thing that...
Well, in any romance story, really.
Yeah.
Like, many stories are about characters coupling up and getting together, and that's the climax of the story. But here, that's just the beginning, and the rest of the story is them working through their feelings and their problems being in a relationship. And that is so much more rare for the entirety of a series to be about that.
And I think that's a more interesting angle to take too, because it's like, yeah, sure, we can watch all these hijinks where it's like, how do I get the girl? Oh, I gotta do this thing, or this crazy, wacky, sitcom-y sort of scheme. But, like, at the end of the day, yeah, I think it's more interesting that, Yamato and Takeo got together, like, very early on. I think it's more interesting in stories to see people kind of work together and work through their issues together more so than them actually trying to, like, trying to get together. That was something I really appreciated as well.
And even in other stories where there is a lot of focus on characters in a relationship already, or like explores those ideas, it usually does not happen from the very start. Like with Yamato and the Seven Witches, it's like 90 chapters until the characters become a couple, and then, you know, the remaining 150 chapters are them being in their relationship. But like, again, that's still 10, 12 volumes until you get to that point.
Yeah, I would say it's the same with Kimi ni Shodoke. Like, Kimi ni Shodoke, 30 volumes. The first 10 are them getting in the relationship, having all the miscommunications and whatnot, and then the last 20 are them in the relationship, but it's still like, you know.
My soul was going to leave my body if you said it was going to take 30 volumes for them to get together.
No, it's not that crazy. It's not that crazy.
Just 10 volumes crazy.
Just 10 volumes. Just 10 volumes, yes. But yeah, no, this is good because it's like all those other things make it seem like the hardest bit is getting in the relationship, where actually in real life, I feel like that's not, if particularly in these times where we have like dating apps and all this nonsense. And like when you're in high school, you are around so many people all the time. Like it's way easier to make friends in a school setting than it is in like a work setting, basically.
Yeah.
All these things. So it's like, you know, all these manga make it seem like the getting in the relationship is the hard part. And I'm like, no, that should be pretty easy. Like, getting in the relationship is you ask, they say yes or no. Cool. Like, whatever. It's the staying in the relationship and the relationship that you presumably wanted so badly all that time that is like really, really hard. It takes a lot of work to stay. It's not like magic. Like, I got in the relationship, now it's permanent forever. Woohoo! Yay!
We're gonna be happy forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, it takes a lot of work to live together for whatever your life spans, if that's what your goal is here, which presumably it is. It's like, yeah, so it's nice also to see them acknowledge that they are young and that it's like a little bit ridiculous. And I mean, it still ends with a marriage proposal, which is like mildly annoying, but like...
Yeah, you're only 17. Maybe wait until you're fully self-sufficient adults before you take that leap.
Yeah. Just like chillax for a second, but you know...
Well, I mean, to be fair, Takeo is even like, no, we'll wait till we're older.
Yeah, but again, you're proposing while you're still in high school.
Yeah. See how your life goes. Like, living apart and going to college and picking careers, those are big things. Like, big stuff. You don't know how it's going to go or anything. But yeah.
Man, I mean, just kind of going off of that, I was really hoping for like some kind of time skip or something before the end. Like, I really wanted to... I want to see the cast of My Love Story like aged up at some point, maybe like an epilogue chapter or something down the line. I would love to see something like that.
My Love Story, the college years.
Yeah. Oh boy. It's an interesting wish because I feel like most of the time in shoujo manga, when I get to the end, I'm like, I didn't need this epilogue. I didn't want this. Nope. didn't want. Take it out. Delete it.
But I guess, was there anything else you guys wanted to touch upon?
I think that the series also challenges ideas that you need to be self-sacrificing to the detriment of yourself in a good way. Because both Takeo and Sunakawa are willing to sacrifice like their own happiness and keep like their unhappiness to themselves in order for their friends to be happy. And the series, goes out of its way to have them confront each other and be like, no, you don't need to be unhappy for my sake. Let's work through these feelings and come to a compromise. So I think that's a very good message. And again, the central thesis is that you should believe yourself to be worthy of love, and that even if your feelings might not be returned by some person, that doesn't mean that there isn't someone out there for you, which is something that a lot of characters, learn throughout the series, not just Takeo himself, but like even characters like Saijo and Amami kind of learn these ideas too. And I really like the Tanaka arc because of how I think it addresses this idea of like having parasocial relationship or like just a relationship with social media in place of actual friendships and how damaging that is. Because Tanaka is someone who's like obsessed with popularity and popularity online and on social media, to the fact that he's not even living in the moment. Like, he's going to these popular spots and pretending that he has friends and pretending that he's popular, in order to accrue online popularity in place of actually having friendships. And then Takeo and Sunakawa end up reaching out to him and like help him realize that he should be living in the moment and actually reaching out and forming genuine connections with people, rather than basing connections with people just through being popular or being in the popular clique on social media and in real life. So I thought that was a really good message. And really good exploration of those ideas that's, increasingly relevant as social media becomes such a overwhelming force in a lot of people's lives, and especially with like a new generation of kids growing up and like online all the time.
Yeah, the moment that really stuck out to me in that arc in particular was when Tanaka, Takeo, and Sunakawa are out camping and spending time together and whatnot, and Tanaka sees a cliff with a bunch of flowers, and he's trying to take a picture and he can't get a good view, so Takeo offers to literally climb him up the mountain or whatever. And while Tanaka's tied to Takeo is trying to take pictures, but while he's dangling from a cliff, and Takeo literally has to be like, hey, like, put your phone away, like, this is really dangerous. Like, I don't know, like, it's just one of those moments where it's like it seems ridiculous, but like I could totally see somebody in this day and age actually doing something like that, and it just makes me kind of sad.
It's a good message to see the world through your own eyes and not through the lens of your phone's camera.
Yeah, I totally feel the same way.
Yeah, well, what I like the most about Sunakawa and Takeo's approach with Tanaka, even though I think, like, overall the Tanaka arc felt a little random to me, because he just, like, appears and, like, takes Sunakawa, and I was like, this doesn't feel real to me. Like, that a transfer student just comes and is like, I request the presence of Sunakawa, and Sunakawa's like, okay. Like, I was like, what? This isn't how life works. I don't understand. But sure. Like, his message overall in the end was fine, so I was like, great. But what I mostly like about it is that also, like, Sunakawa and Takeo are like, you know what? He says he wants these things, so, like, we're gonna give him those things and see, that's how we're gonna tell if he's a good person or not, if he, like, actually appreciates after what we've done for him and all these things. But also I think that generally Takeo and Sunakawa, to all people, are great because they're empathetic enough to reach out to people who are not within their social circle, right? To, like, help them. They're always helping strangers and all these things. But they are also kind enough to each other and appreciate each other enough to constantly be protecting the people in their circles. So they're like, Tanaka, we will, like, hate you if you are mean to Sunakawa or whatever. And Sunakawa's always like, I reject girls because they talk bad about you, Takeo, behind my back, and, like, you're my bro, so can't have that. Like, that you are more important to me than anything. And yeah, just the genuine appreciation of, like, again, it's good to make friends, and social media can facilitate knowing lots of people, but also, like, having a core group of people that you can depend on is, like, way more important and fulfilling normally than having a cajillion followers on Twitter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Twitter followers won't come save you and climb a cliff with you.
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that is such an admirable thing about Takeo in particular, that he is just so willing to help people in need and not think twice about it.
Yeah, no, that's, like, him thinking twice about it is like, oh, no, that's not good, Takeo. Don't think about it. Just go for it.
Though Takeo does learn that Takeo is very much a person who lives in the moment. And we see that throughout the series, that he does things without thinking a lot of times. But of course, he does learn by the end of the series that it's not just enough to live in the moment and be satisfied with how things are, but also he needs to actively, like, fight for his future, which is basically the crux of that final arc, where he has to, like, go out of his way to preserve his relationship with Yamato, not just by excelling in his studies, but also after he makes that huge mistakes and thinks that he is hurting her by being in a relationship with her and realizing that was a mistake to break up with her, to go all the way out into Spain and like rebuild that relationship.
Oh, geez, my heart sank. Like, that hurt a lot.
Yeah, but man, what a great moment it is that all the characters that they've interacted with throughout the series and helped along the way convene together to yell at Takeo and tell him, no, you've made a mistake. You need to get back together with her.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting moment, because you even have people like Ichinose and Tanaka, like, you know, like, was Ichinose not doing anything important? Like, and also didn't Tanaka, like, transfer to another school? Like,
they took time out of their day and traveled from afar.
They were like, this is the most
together.
important thing. This is the most important thing.
And I love the panel that's just showing, like, all the characters, like, marching towards Takeo's house. It's so good. And people are wondering, like, where are they all going?
Yeah, what's up with these people?
I thought that was a very interesting moment for sure. Because it's like, for some of those people, it's like, how far did they have to travel just for this one person?
No distance can keep them apart, man. What's up?
Ain't no mountain high enough.
Yeah, ain't no mountain high enough.
That's true friendship.
Yeah. I do love how many times, like, people going to an airport and then, like, I don't know, they go to Okinawa spontaneously, they go to Spain spontaneously, Ai chases down Oda in the airport that one time. I'm like, all right, y'all like to run away, like, a lot. That's cool.
A big common trope in romance stories, like the chase to the airport to stop someone from leaving and confess their feelings for them before it's too late. The series really likes to use that.
Oh, man. Yeah. Like, I can't help but think, like, if I were in that situation and someone were chasing after me, you know, even if they were like, no, wait, come back, I love you, I'd be like, I mean, okay, I'll stay, but, like, can you pay me back for my airport ticket? Like,
yeah.
Flying's expensive. Like, I wouldn't just want to, I wouldn't want to just drop my flight. Like, I already bought the ticket.
But it is kind of amazing that this is such a common cliche in so many romance stories. Off the top of my head, I remember this happens in Nizukoi, this happens in Kimagure or in Drone. This is a trope since, I guess since airports have been a thing.
Since airports have existed. Our whole lives. Always a trope. I just feel like airports, you used to actually be able to more easily do stuff like that, but now I'm like, no, airports.
How are you going to get through security?
Exactly. I'm like, you gotta go through security and everything now. That doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Like, what are you talking about?
Maybe Japanese airports are more
people
lenient.
would question Rinko and Takeo. I mean, I guess if Takeo is supposed to look like an adult, maybe not, but they'd be like, they'd have to have IDs and like, they would show that they're minors and like, I don't know, all these things would like get in the way.
I just want a scene with one of them, like, trying to go through, like, security in the metal detector, and the security guard just being like, hey, what are you doing here? You gotta get in line with everybody else. I'm in love! Okay, go ahead.
I'm in love. I guess it just annoys me because I'm 29, and I swear, like, a year ago, I went to the airport, and, like, I was by myself, being 28 or whatever, and the security guard was like, who are you with? And I was like, I am 28. And just like, he was like, oh my god, my bad. Like, I thought you were a minor. I'm like, you thought I was like sub 18? Like, I'm so confused right now.
What the heck?
I know. So like, airport stories like that is just like, I'm just like, no, the airports don't work like that. It's just not, they just don't.
Yeah, the TSA doesn't give a shit about your shitty romance or whatever. You gotta follow the rules like everyone else.
Yeah, I know. God.
The TSA would stop Takeo for like an extra check.
Yeah,
probably,
yeah, totally.
just because of how big he is and that they'd be suspicious of him.
I know. God, where's my manga that shows me realistic airports?
That should be parodied in like a romance manga at some point. Just this idea of, oh, I have to race to the airport to stop this person, but I have to get a ticket because they won't let me in without one. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
I have to go through security. Oh no, I'm detained.
I know,
detained. Oh no, they think I'm an illegal immigrant. They're gonna deport me.
I know, like, oh my god.
Oh no, wait, I forgot to leave my hand soap at home. Now they think I'm a terrorist.
Yeah, now they think I'm a terrorist. Oh no. God, Yeah, that's what I need. That's what I need. Get it together, manga. Get it together.
Any series that includes that is automatically like contender for best manga of all time in my book. Like seriously.
Yes. My goodness. I feel like the only other thing I wanted to touch on was the art, actually, because I think it's really great. I also think that it is heavily inspired. I haven't read that much, like, older shoujo, because I'm not that great at this, but, like, especially in, like, Yamato's eyes and stuff, it feels very heavily inspired by older, like, 70s shoujo with, like, heavy use of blatant sparkles and all these things. I'm like, yeah, I dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that, especially with Takeo. He doesn't look like your modern, like, protagonist at all. Like, he feels like somebody that he feels like a character from a 70s manga.
Yeah, especially his dad. His dad actually feels super like he's from a 70s manga to me.
Yeah.
Like, Takeo looks like Gogol 13 is his dad. Like...
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least is like his grandfather or something.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just a lot of instances, too, where, like, Yamato is not drawn quite chibi, but, like, a soft, like, rounder, older style looking sort of deal. And I'm like, I dig it. I'm down. I'm game.
I could see that.
And to me, it's really interesting how Aruko's arc differs from Kawahara's arc, and especially in the way in how each of those artists draw, like, the main characters, because Kawahara's Takeo has a much slimmer face, is not quite as bulky. It definitely looks like a different character almost, because his lips are much smaller, and his eyes are much bigger, with different type of eyebrows, and this changes throughout the series when we have, like, Kawahara, like, drawing Takeo in different ways throughout the series during, like, the author's comments parts. But
Yeah.
I always feel that her Yamato in particular always looks so different from Aruko's Yamato, because there's just a quality both in, like, the eyes and her face that just look a lot more sharper. Like, Kawahara's character designs look a lot more sharper with more, like, blunt shapes as opposed to the rounder shapes of Aruko's. So, Yamato in particular looks almost like a completely different character to me. It's like, with Aruko's Yamato, I definitely get that sense that she is a very cheery, innocent girl, but with Kawahara's Yamato, I get kind of a mischievous energy from her. So it's really interesting just how, like, the nuances of how they draw the characters, like, there's so much different characterization that you can draw and interpret for them, which is, I think, why Kawahara is always so awestruck with how Aruko draws the characters, because there's definitely an energy that she notices, and I definitely agree with, that Aruko captures with these designs that Kawahara's designs definitely can't, that, like, contributes to this idea that these characters are, like, really innocent and optimistic and cheerful in a way that, like, Kawahara's doesn't.
Yeah, really the only character out of the three that I feel like is the most similarly designed, no matter who draws him, is Sunakawa.
Which is interesting because Kawahara is always complaining about how she thinks her Sunakawa isn't cool enough. That's always the character she's dissatisfied with how she draws.
I mean, I actually agree with her. When I look at him, I'm like, yeah, you drew him less hot and you made Takeo hotter. It's like, basically always
that is true. That is true. Even though
I can see that.
I do still agree that when I compare her Takeo and Aruko's Takeo and her Sunakawa and Aruko's Sunakawa, I think the Sunakawas look much closer than the Takeos do.
Yeah, but she's definitely just being like, Sunakawa, you shouldn't be as hot. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see there being a different energy comparing the two designs, but which is interesting because to me both designs really do look very similar. It's just interesting. Also, Takeo does not look the same at the end of the manga as he does in the beginning. Like, he really, I think, got the most dramatic change throughout the series.
Which is pretty expected with a manga that runs for any considerable length of time, that as the artist becomes more comfortable drawing the characters, they eventually will get more simplified and smoother, because the artist is more comfortable drawing them now and has a like clear sense of, like, how they approach the character.
I also just love how expressive he is, too. Takeo has way too many good faces.
Yeah, Aruko really has fun playing with Takeo's face to create some really great wild takes. She's so playful in her art in a really fun way. Like, Takeo's shirts, when he's wearing a white t-shirt, always has fun text that represents what he's thinking on them.
I was like, where do I get this? Where's this shirt sold at?
This magic t-shirt that has what he's thinking on it all the time. Like, when he thinks Yamato's had a bad day at work, it, like, reads, "Come at me!" with an exclamation mark and anything. It's just really wonderful quirks like that I really love about her art. And it's really quite incredible that apparently Kawahara storyboards are very simple. Like, the just basic idea of where characters are placed and dialogue, and then Aruko takes all that and really comes up with the visual element of it all on her own, which is quite impressive to me. Like, apparently, for minor characters, Kawahara would just write, a simple description of what the character looks like, and then Aruko came up with a design all on her own, which is quite impressive to me. And the main three themselves were kind of designed that way. Like, Kawahara asked Aruko to draw her, like, a cool-looking guy, and so she drew Sunakawa, and then she asked her to draw a kind of character type that doesn't normally appear in shoujo manga, and that's how she drew Takeo. And so, yeah, Aruko's really good at coming up with, like, very interesting character designs, like, consistently throughout the series.
Yeah, I thought as far as the art went, and, like, the paneling and sequencing, I thought were all pretty good. Aruko's art is, like, it feels very minimalistic in places, but I think it also gets the job done.
Yeah, it's all about, like, where she places the focus of the reader. Like, there is a lot of panels that are just focused on characters' faces, or even just text balloons, but it's paced out in such a way that the flow of reading is always engaging. And so you don't need to have, like, a whole lot of art going on sometimes because you're already, like, engrossed in what you're reading. And then, because the art can be so minimalist at times, when there is, like, a big, profound art moment, a big 2-page spread, that even has even more impact.
Her art doesn't feel super cluttered, which it's very easy to tell, like, what's going on.
Yeah, I prefer less over more, certainly. I've read my overcluttered shoujo, and I'm always like, what's going on here? That's fine. Feelings, I don't know. People have feelings, that's fine.
Definitely less is more sometimes when it comes to, like, to drawing a really good comic, because if you have too much visual elements going on, it can distract the reader on what they need to focus on. But I always felt the focus was very clear in My Love Story, which I think is one of the reasons why it's such a engaging read in a way that it is better than the anime, in that the focus is so clear and that the pace that the reader can go on is so controlled and deliberate in a way that, like, leaves them satisfied with every chapter.
Yeah, they talked before about, like, feelings, minds, hearts, or whatever the line was, being invisible, but being the most important things. And I'm like, this manga knows when to use, like, most spreads between Yamato and Takeo, I feel, when they have a big dramatic moment, are just the two of them, like, looking at each other with text dialogue. And I'm like, yeah, it knows what's up. It knows what it's doing. It knows that it is depicting the feelings and the minds and the souls or whatever via just having them in a space where nothing else exists and it's only the two of them looking at each other, feeling each other out. Yeah. Are we going to have our manga fight?
Oh, yeah. Well, before we get into that, there are a few... I think we've lauded the series on many levels for a lot of things. I do want to mention a few minor criticisms I might have of it. And they're really only a small amount. One, while the characters themselves are very chaste, there were times, particularly towards the beginning of the series, where I was worried that Takeo might be sexualized a little bit in odd ways. Mainly when Takeo is working at like the masculine like bro bar, the club, and he's wearing these really tight shorts, and like
the booty shorts.
Yeah, booty shorts. And to me, it's so. It's funny, but also Takeo is a high schooler, and he seems like he's being hit on by adults. And to me, that made me a little worried. So I think that was a little questionable, even though ultimately it was pretty harmless and innocent.
Yeah.
And then there's my only other red flag I had while reading the series was the character of Ichinose. He's probably the character I like pretty much all the characters in my love story, but Ichinose is probably the one that I really have problems with and really dislike. Because, for one thing, Ichinose's personality is pretty terrible. Like, he's this egocentric, self-absorbed, rude asshole who's, like, really thinks so highly of himself and, like, puts down other people. And, his entire staff really doesn't like him because he kind of is so condescending towards them. And he like tells Rinko that, the way you say welcome is weird, and don't embarrass our shop. We have a reputation to uphold. Like, he really puts her down for no reason at all. So that's bad enough. But also, he wants to date Rinko, and he's a 21-year-old dude who wants to date a high schooler 7 years younger than him. And I'm like, this age gap is no stranger to, like, manga and stuff, but, like, this, no. I don't like him even being presented as a potential love rival or someone who could win over Yamato's affections. And I think it's very uncomfortable, like, the situation he places Yamato in, and that he has these ulterior motives, and he pretty much forces her to spend time with him instead of Takeo to help him bake this cake for the competition. So he's very manipulative in that way. And also, again, he's very judgmental of Takeo. He's just a pretty bad person all around. And ultimately, he does come around to Takeo and, like, gain respect for him. And he's a funny character in some other ways. But just, like, there's so many aspects to his character that I just really didn't like. So I was pretty disappointed with the anime version that's where the anime ended. And I'm glad there's more story after the manga. Though, at the same time, the Ichinose arc is like the second longest arc in the series, besides the final arc, because it's 5 chapters long, and basically is 2 volumes. It's like at the end of volume 8 and goes through the beginning of volume 10. So, it's one of the longer stories, which is a little unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, the core message of it in Takeo, like, having to deal with a rival for Yamato's affections, and then, learning to have trust in, how Yamato feels for him, like, having that self-affirmation, that's good stuff. The Takeo end of it is good. Character of Ichinose, not so good. I do like his quirk of, like, how his inner thoughts are expressed through these big, bold text that appears on panels, and, like, that expressing what he really thinks, and, like, it's just his inner thoughts, so no one else can, understand what he's really thinking, except for Takeo, who apparently can read and understand what he's thinking, which I think is pretty hilarious.
Because they both love Yamato. I don't know. Ichinose was also annoying to me. I mean, admittedly, all the side characters felt like a little weak to me. I don't know. Because the core 3 are so strong, and just nobody else can reach that hype level for me in this manga.
I kind of agree for the most part, I think.
Yeah.
The series really is about the core 3, though I do like a lot of the side characters when they show up in the story. There are a few that, I would have liked to see more of. I would have liked, to follow up to the Saijo arc, where Takeo does help Saijo, with getting together with another person. Like, the end of that arc kind of alludes to, like, Takeo promises, if you never need my help, if you fall in love again, I'll be there for you. I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see maybe more of Amami kind of grow into someone who was, like, more socially capable and had more of a social circle. I kind of wish that Yamato had, like, her own Sunakawa in a way, like a really close friend. Because her friend circle, like, she has a lot of friends, but I don't feel like she's really close with any of them in the same way that Takeo is with Sunakawa.
Yeah, and that's why I guess things fall apart for her in Spain, too, is like, I don't know, is she talking to those people? I guess. I don't know.
I think just in terms of the side characters, like, I think are probably the most interesting to me are, one, Takeo's mom, and then two, I thought I was a pretty interesting character.
Yeah, and I is the only character who has, like, more arcs than just one. Like, she has, like, follow-up arcs to her story. And that's pretty interesting because, like, the last of those follow-up arcs are just between... The focus of that story is just the relationship between her and Oda. And it doesn't necessarily tie into the Takeo Yamato relationship or Takeo Sunakawa relationship, which is, like, the only story, I think, that doesn't tie into that in some way.
And see, that's interesting because I do agree that Ichinose I think is really annoying, but for some reason I thought, I don't know, I didn't really like Oda that much. I kind of thought he was obnoxious.
Me neither. Oda is also a manipulative person and a person who is, like, interjecting himself into the situation, you know, trying to kind of control and force Ai to do stuff she doesn't want to do, so I don't really like her. And also, again, he does force himself on Ai, which is a really shitty thing. And then he manipulates her again into thinking that he's going to leave forever when he's just going to India for, like, a week. So...
I was like, you can do better.
You know, I don't really appreciate Oda's character either. Yeah, and I didn't like the implication that I did ultimately fall for Oda after, like, she slapped him at the airport and stuff. She came back home with, like, kind of that content smile on her face. I didn't necessarily think that they should get together because I don't think Oda's a very good person.
Like I get it, you know, she has to get over Takeo at some point, and I understand that, but it's also like, yeah, you could do a lot better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Oda is, like, my second least favorite character after Ichinose, for sure. Even though, again, like Ichinose, he does have funny moments, but, like, what he does in the series is pretty questionable and unlikable.
Yeah, I would say, actually, one of the red flags for me was I appreciate what this was trying to do, but it was the police cafe that the girls have at their school. And I'm like, I appreciate that you're not making it a maid cafe, I guess, because they go to an all-girls school and all these things. At the same time, I was like, but the weird, like, sexual implications of this in an environment where you all are knowingly like, oh my god, the boys come and, like, harass us. I was just kind of like, why? I didn't need this chapter. Like, I didn't need this, whatever.
Did think it was just an excuse to dress Takeo up in a policeman's outfit.
Yeah. And I was like, nah, I was fine without that.
So, there are a few minor quibbles I think we all have with the series. I think overall they don't detract from the core enjoyment of it and what makes it so good, but yeah. Still, there are some imperfect elements to it.
I was gonna say, there's way more good here than there is bad.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah. And again, I really appreciate a lot of the small jokes in the series. From the, like, even at the beginning, like, the Groper shirt, on it is the number 69. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
Like,
wow.
I love the way they sprinkle in those little visual gags like that. So,
of course it is.
But yeah, I feel like we pretty much covered all the bases we wanted to talk about with My Love Story, except for one crucial central question. We put it out on Twitter for our listeners to send us some My Love Story related questions and topics and stuff, and we only got one from our good friend Allison, who asked the question that is on every My Love Story fan's mind. Who is the true best boy, Suna or Takeo? And since we only have this one fan question, I think we should do something a little more interesting than just simply answering the question. I think we should have a manga fight!
I'll be sure to put in the manga fight music here to accompany that.
Yep, we're gonna have a 1-round manga fight. Rules are, of course, normal manga fight rules. Opening argument 1 minute, streak counting arguments 1 minute each, closing argument 1 minute. So basically, every person has 5 minutes, and we alternate off 1 minute each for both of you guys.
I think we should make the time 30 seconds.
Yeah, we can do 30 seconds. Sure.
Yeah, because I feel like it might be hard for the both of us to keep our arguments at a minute.
Sounds fair to me. So I think the first question is, before we even go into this manga fight, is which one of you is going to argue for Suna and which one of you is going to argue for Takeo?
I'll argue for Takeo.
Yes, I want to argue for Suna.
All right. So let's answer the question: who is true best boy, Takeo or Suna? And who wants to go first? Actually, to make it more interesting, I am going to pick a cover of My Love Story.
Okay.
So, I am going to tell you what is on this cover, and you will have to tell me what volume number it is.
Oh no, okay.
Okay, are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So, on this cover, Takeo is dressed up like a prince, about to kiss Yamato, who is dressed up like a princess.
Volume 11.
9.
Colton is right. It is the cover of Volume 11.
Which one was Volume 9 again?
Volume 9 was Takeo dressed up in a karate uniform. There's fire in the background. It looks all badass.
And he's totally not Ryu from Street Fighter.
Oh, no. They look this similar completely. Oh, man. Should we just mention what our favorite volume covers for My Love Story are very quickly? Because we alluded to it before, but this series has great covers.
Yeah, I like a few of them. Just to mention them real quickly. I love I think it's volume 5 where he's in a tuxedo with the roses, and I especially love the one, I think it's volume 12 where
Cowboy.
It looks I'm sure it looks like a poster for a really old Western movie. I love that cover the most, I think. Yeah,
that's my favorite too. What about you, Ashley?
I think volume 8, where he's dancing, is kind of my favorite. Takeo's dancing.
That one's so good too.
Just really appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of the back half of the series, as far as the covers go, are probably my favorites.
Yeah, I also really like Volume 7's cover, which is them and the Takeo is in a kabuki kind of costume and makeup on, and looks very ukiyo-e-esque Japanese art almost.
Yeah, that one's pretty good too.
Okay, now time for the manga fight. And Colton, since you guessed the cover right, you will go first with your opening argument about why Takeo is best boy. And you will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Alright, so Takeo is best boy for a lot of reasons, and I could spend the next 30 seconds listing them all off, and I think I will. One, he has great faces. I think he's very expressive, and I mean, how can you say no to a good face game? And just to list a few other reasons, he's always helpful of others. He always puts others before himself. Actually, if I had to say so, I think he's personally more handsome than Sunakawa. I don't know if that's a hot take, but and yeah.
Time!
Okay,
Ashley!
There we go.
Your opening argument.
Okay, Suna is the best friend you will ever have and that you need in your life, first of all. He is very emotionally supportive. Perhaps he cannot beat up things like Takeo can, but he's gonna look out for you in all the emotional ways that I think Takeo is a little too dense to pick up on a lot of the time. I will admit that this is hard because I actually think that Takeo and Suna are perfect for each other. Like, they need each other to make each other stronger, but I'm just gonna throw that out there. Be nice right here.
All right, time.
Yeah.
Colton, counter argument.
I do agree that Takeo is dense. This is very true. But Takeo, I think we see that throughout the series, he obviously he tries to make up for that by trying to be aware of other people's feelings and just aware of his surroundings in general, and that if he makes a mistake, he will more than likely make up for it. And just in general, like Sunakawa.
Time! Ashley, counter argument.
Okay, so Takeo only learns those things because he has observed Sunakawa doing them for him. And Sunakawa is definitely way more attractive, first of all. Conventionally attractive. And just Suna is also, like, anything that Takeo is learning is kind of from Suna, to be honest. Like, I don't know. It's just like Suna's been his boy, and Suna has taught him how to be like a kind person, to use his masculinity in like these ways. And like his mom has done that too, but like I really think observing Suna has done a lot for whatever Takeo is learning.
All right, time. Colton, counter argument.
It feels like Ashley's getting more time than me, but I'll let that slide.
I'm on time.gov, going through 30 seconds, so I'm letting if both of you are in the middle of a sentence, I'm letting you finish that sentence until you're done.
That's fair. But anyway, on to my time. So I do agree that Takeo does learn a lot from Sunakawa, but I also think that the opposite is very much true, in which Sunakawa also learns from Takeo too, in that, he sort of learns to kind of be more expressive about his feelings as well, and to be more open with Takeo, and whatnot. And so I think, like I said, the opposite is true. The shoe's on the underfoot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's also true of Sunakawa that he also learns from Takeo.
All right, time. Ashley, counter argument.
Okay, but Sunakawa only learns how to deal with Takeo. I think Takeo learns lessons from Sunakawa that apply to everybody, whereas Sunakawa is like, maybe you just shouldn't trust me as much, Takeo. Like, I'm not a perfect person, but he actually kind of maybe is a perfect person. With normal human failings of like, he has snapping points, that's fine, but like, I don't know, he doesn't get suspended from school like Takeo. He knows how to keep it together. And because he thinks more, he's able to be like, hey Takeo, you didn't need to go break into the school to get a printout for me. What's up? We have these things called copiers.
Time. Colton, counter argument.
Well, see, the thing with Takeo is that he does kind of think in the moment, and sometimes it does get in trouble, but that's also a quality that I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Like, sure, sometimes it gets him in the trouble, but it also keeps him from overthinking about the situation too much. Takeo is a man of action, and I think a lot of people would agree that that is a very admirable quality.
All right, time. Ashley, counter argument.
A man of action is an admirable quality, but I feel like it is one that we see much more in manga generally. Like, all our shonen heroes are kind of meatheads who jump into stuff and like swing some swords around and are like, I'm protecting people, blah 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 blah. So in that way, he doesn't feel special to me in the way that Suna's like quiet honesty, not using fists, but using like anytime that people are like, thank you, Suna, for helping me, he's like, I didn't do it, Takeo did it. Like, he's just brutally honest, and I think his more thoughtful way, like, it doesn't prevent him from ever doing anything. He's just very thoughtful and more perceptive initially than Takeo is. So
time. Colton, closing argument.
My closing argument is that, sure, Takeo may learn a lot from Sunakawa, but I also think that, every once in a while, Sunakawa can also learn a few things from Takeo as well. So, also, I still think Takeo is pretty handsome. That's my closing argument.
Fair enough. Now, Ashley, your closing argument.
Listen, Takeo's got sweet, sweet abs, but Suna's got that sweet, sweet hair. Sweet, slender body. His eyes will suck into your soul. Also, he likes to read books. Who doesn't like a good bookish man, my friends? And again, he is the best friend that you need. He's always there for you because he's probably just reading a book and he wants you to bother him. So, do that. And he just wants to look out for you and, he's fine. He doesn't even need you to be on his hype level about the books that he's reading. He's just like, what's up? We can go climb a mountain.
All right. Time. Okay, so that is the manga fight. Now, this was a really good back and forth, you guys. I felt you both brought compelling arguments to the table. I think that when it came to distinguishing, what admirable qualities each of these characters have, or how each character's relationship to each other worked, and what lessons they teach each other. To me, the argument that stands out is that Ashley argued that while Takeo gives Sunakawa advice about how to talk to Takeo, Sunakawa gives Takeo advice of how to interact with other people, a lot of different people, and also deal with a lot of different situations. And so to me, that stood out as an argument, as well as the argument that Takeo is a more traditional protagonist in terms of some of the qualities that we see in him to other protagonists of other manga, especially in shonen manga, whereas Sunakawa is a more unique character in terms of a character we don't often see depicted in manga, alongside just other good arguments about what makes him such a supportive best friend and someone to rely on and stuff like that. So there is going to be a straw poll in the description of this episode for you, the listeners, to decide who is the true best boy. And we will reveal the results when we record our next podcast. But in my opinion, as the manga fights arbiter, as the judge, I will say that the winner of this round is Ashley!
I'm okay.
Yes, Suna, correct opinions right here.
Suna is now officially crowned the best boy.
I'm so sorry, Takeo.
Yeah, you should feel bad. You let Takeo down here.
Rub it in, Ashley.
It's alright. Takeo is like, it's fine, I love Suna. Suna's best boy. He agrees. It's fine.
Yeah, he'd be like, I wanted him to win anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Exactly.
Oh.
I will say, in terms of the attractive points for each character, between abs and the hair, I'm definitely on Colton's side with the abs.
I mean, abs are good, I will not lie.
Can I get extra points for not totally bailing out of this Waka fight like I usually do?
Well, that's the bare minimum that it takes to participate in a manga fight is to actually do it.
Can I get a participation ribbon?
Participation reward right here, yeah.
Sure, you didn't give up. That's definitely progress.
Yay!
To becoming
I win something. Yay!
Millennials.
Totally earned. But anyway, yeah, this was definitely a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We did it.
I'm glad we were finally able to talk about My Love Story after all this time, and I think we had a great conversation about what makes it so special.
Yeah, and I guess before we kind of head on out into the ending of the show, we'll definitely leave links in the show notes, but, if you're interested in reading My Love Story, go support the official release. If you go to Viz's website, specifically their page for My Love Story, I'm sure you will find tons of links in where you can buy it physically or even buy it digitally. It's pretty readily available. So, if you have any interest in reading My Love Story after listening to this, go read it.
Yeah, it's also available on my library. Had multiple copies of every volume, so check out the library. And I also really want to push Viz's digital releases, because they're actually, in the way that people are like, why is the digital one always like the same price as the physical one? And I'm like, okay, well, that's because there's reasons for that. I won't go into them. But like Viz's actually aren't. Viz actually prices them at like $6. You could buy this whole series like real cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of Viz's releases are like what, like I want to say almost half the price of their physical releases, roughly. I would say, but they are still pretty cheap. Like they're pretty affordable.
Yeah, and I guess like you're saving the environment, less paper. Like, do it, go for it.
I mean, unless you love My Love Story so much that you want to own it, physical is not a bad option. So
yeah, I mean, you do you.
I mean, either way, you're supporting the series, which is always a good thing, so.
Yeah. There are multiple price levels to love this series, and you should do them instead of stealing scans. It's basically my only real thing here.
We'll leave links for where you can buy My Love Story in the show notes for the episode, but yeah, I guess that's about it. Thanks for coming on, Ashley. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad you read a shoujo manga.
I promise I'll read more. We're, again, 2019, the year Colton reads more shoujo manga.
There we go.
Yeah.
The year where I become less shonen trash by the month. But yeah, Ashley, do you want to talk about like where the good people who listening can find you and about Shojo and Tell and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. So I am AshMcD00 on Twitter. I don't know why you would want to follow me. My podcast is Shojo Tell on Twitter. And basically, yeah, it's a podcast only talking about shoujo manga. I do eventually plan to there's also josei manga. Maybe make shonen exceptions sometimes for like nisekoi and the more romantic ones. Basically. And it's basically going through, like, we discussed the series today. Each episode is normally about a different series, although longer ones get broken up into shorter episodes. Also because I don't want to read 30 volumes at a time for, like, an episode. That's a little much. Kimi ni Todoke, I'm looking at you. Yeah. And so it's been around for about a year. We've done probably, like, 15 series, and it's an ongoing thing.
Wow.
And it'll be great. We're gonna keep going through all the shoujos. That'll take like 15 years. Don't quote me on that, but that's fine. That's the goal.
Hopefully we'll catch up to you at some point one day.
Yeah. Okay.